Welcome back, everyone, to Life Without Limits, where there are no limits to what you can achieve. This is part 2 with Dr. David Feinstein. And I left him hanging right at the moment when he was describing this woman tapping on her fear of closed spaces and claustrophobia. So thank you, David, for allowing me to interrupt you. Please continue with your story and let us know what happened with this woman.
Right, so carrying on. So there she was, down further, and I'm thinking that she's just playing along, kind of, that she just doesn't want to embarrass the therapist. She just maybe feels some bond towards him. But then they do another round, and boom, it's back up. And I said, I knew it wouldn't work. These were just fluctuations, but this is not working. He must be really embarrassed right now, and I'll try to be respectful of the process. He's sincere, and then, but he asks a question I didn't expect. He says, okay, I think it went up to an 8 and back up to an 8. And he says, how do you know it's an 8? How do you know it's an 8? And she says, oh, well, actually, I'm not thinking of elevators anymore. I had a memory, and it's a memory I haven't had for decades, but it's really upsetting. And it's when I was a little girl, I'm not sure how old, maybe 8 or so, and I'm with my brothers, and we have this big appliance box that we're playing with, and we're pushing it along the lawn and giving each other rides. And when it's my turn, they push it against a wall, and it's only got one opening, and they push the opening against the wall, and I'm stuck in there, and I can't get out, and because my weight is keeping it, so I can't move it, and I can't push it away, and I'm screaming, and I'm screaming. I don't know how long I was screaming, but I screamed and screamed until I couldn't scream anymore, and I don't know how long I was in there, but do you think that could have something to do with my claustrophobia? And so I'm thinking, okay, so something came out of this, which is now the therapist has a place to dig in, and, talking about this for maybe a year or so. And something will start to change in her claustrophobia, because now she sees the roots of the problem. And so then he starts tapping on that. He starts tapping on her terror that she's remembering. He starts tapping, and because tapping, you can do a round of tapping so quickly in a minute or two that you can go to lots of places. That's one of its great advantages, is that flexibility. And so he has her tapping on, he kind of digs in a little bit, but finds out that she's got, just kind of shock that her brothers would do that, resentment towards her brothers, all the different aspects of it that he can identify in that time. And then he's able to get each one down to 0, tap each one down to 0. Okay. And then, and I'm just watching, just amazed at all this performance. And then he goes back to the elevators, and it's maybe at a 5, and gets that down to 0 real quickly. I've never seen anything like this, because I've worked with phobias, and it's 10 sessions probably for a good phobia treatment, and using systematic desensitization and those kinds of techniques. And so, so she's down to 0, and she's really pleased with herself, and but we're all psychologists, and psychologists like to test things. Mm-hmm. So we just said, okay, there's a hall closet there, coat closet. Mm-hmm. And so the therapist invites her to step into it. He's very sensitive. He says, we don't want to, re-traumatize you. If you feel any anxiety at all, just open the door and step out. And she goes. And then here we are, a dozen psychologists standing around this coat door and waiting. We're waiting. And after about 5 minutes, which seemed like a really long time, the therapist knocks on the door, says, "Are you okay?" And she comes out, and she's exuberant. She's never been able to do something like that. It's just like something major has changed, and everybody's really impressed. And then I'm thinking, okay, I got it. I see what they're up to. Is a social psychology experiment to see how gullible psychotherapists are. But it turned out it wasn't.
I was still trying to make sense of this.
So that was kind of one of those turning points that goes from this direction. Okay, there's something to this, because I never, I could see that Donna's work was really helping people on the physiological level, but I didn't see how it could help on the psychological level. And even though she does work she doesn't separate psychology from body, she works with one. But what this did was it gave me a way to totally zero in on the emotional aspects of a problem or an issue or a goal and quickly resolve it.
So here you are having your paradigm shift, learning that there's something new that's effective through Chinese medicine, through acupressure. What would you say to those who have still not made that shift, those who are still skeptical, saying this is fluff, this is wacky?
Well, first I tell them that story. I tell that story a lot because it just makes the point. And then I tell them that I almost immediately got into a training program with Fred Gallo and learned, really did some real intensive study of this and was getting those kinds of results. Not that every psychotherapy issue can get cured in 20 minutes, but things where it's a simple conditioned response, such as most phobias, you just target that. And so that's the second thing, is that not only did I have that experience, but then I was having that experience multiple times. And then the next thing, and as you know, from in 96, still in 2002, there still was not one peer-reviewed clinical trial that supported this. There was great claims on the, Roger's book was the 5-minute phobia cure. I mean, it took a lot of chutzpah to put that out with no research behind it. He knew he was right, but so it was really a gutsy thing to do. But from the perspective of my profession, your profession, this you don't make claims like that without research supporting it. But now there are more than 100 outcome studies, almost all of which show that this works and works quickly. And almost half of those studies are randomized controlled trials, kind of the low gold standard, but still a gold standard within research. And so you've got, I think it's at 49 randomized controlled trials where the tapping has been compared to another group. Either the group is a waitlist group, or their cognitive behavior therapy, or their EMDR, or their some kind of placebo intervention or diaphragmatic breathing. And in all the cases that it's not, except for cognitive behavior therapy and EMDR, the tapping group does way better. And in cognitive behavior therapy, the tapping group tends to do a little better on speed and get similar results, but a little faster. And so you have something that's standing up to the really established. I mean, cognitive behavior therapy is the treatment of choice for PTSD, for lots of things. And you have something that is, and I think that when the research, there's very few studies right now, and they're preliminary, but I think when the research is in, we will find that the tapping is actually much faster than cognitive behavior therapy. And I just haven't, it just hasn't been done yet. But I think that that's what we'll, but anyway, to the hypothetical, open-minded, skeptical colleague, I would tell them those things. My first experience, my subsequent experiences, then the research corroborates my experiences. Mm-hmm. And then there's the magic part. It's part of why it is so hard for people to really embrace this, is because what's happening in the brain? How does this tapping actually make a difference? And we know something about that too, that I would tell our skeptical friend. I would tell our friend about the way that a 10-year research program at Harvard Medical School studied the effects of needling acupuncture points, and found that certain points send signals to the amygdala and other parts of the limbic system that reduce arousal. And so then, is needling and tapping, do they get the same results? They do. There's things now that show that. So you have that so in an energy psychology, so like with the woman with the claustrophobia, okay, so she thinks about elevators and her amygdala goes into a fight or flight response. Then you start tapping and you're sending signals to the amygdala that reduce arousal. And the brain can't tolerate a lot of contradiction. So you have the arousal, the reduction, and if you keep tapping just a few rounds, it starts to bring this down. So that now you've got that you're able to imagine being in an elevator without the arousal, without the early experiences being relived, which is the definition of the cure for PTSD, is the person can go into all those experiences without reliving them. Then they're well on their way to being able to live a symptom-free life. So and there's more to the mechanism. There's something called memory reconsolidation, which is another, okay, so you bring it down when she's imagining being in an elevator, you brought it down right then but how come the next time she goes in an elevator, she's not aroused again, she's not upset again? Why does it last? And that's a little more complex, but we understand that also, what the mechanisms are neurologically that keep it as a permanent improvement. So those are the four things I would tell our skeptical friend.
So my question would be, with good old-fashioned habituation, because that's what I learned 150 years ago for OCD. But my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, is that the amygdala is in that fight, flight, or freeze state, but it stays up there until it gets bored and exhausted, and then it drops through habituation, rather than tapping on points, calming that arousal faster and bringing it down, hopefully on a permanent basis. I just think it is so torturous to expose someone so that their subjective units or their distress goes up to a 6, 7, or 8, waiting for it to drop, when you can tap on these points and bring it down faster.
Yes, exactly. And the extinction training is part of cognitive behavior therapy. It's part of the exposure, and it turns out that it works, but it neurologically, when you do habituation, when you do extinction training, what you're doing is you're overriding the old learning. So there's the old learning, closed spaces are dangerous, and now the new learning is they're not dangerous because you've just experienced 30 times being in a closed space or imagining being in a closed space and nothing bad happened. Okay. And so it overwrites it, but the old learning is still there, and the old learning can pop up again real easily. So whereas what happens with the tapping is that what neurologists call depotentiate the old learning. You break up the neural pathways, and that's where the memory reconsolidation comes in. And that's a longer story, but it does that so that and quite by accident. I mean, Roger Callahan didn't know any of this because nobody knew any of this when he came up with this in the 80s. But his intuition, his instinct was right on, because all therapies that are effective facilitate memory reconsolidation. That's what the memory reconsolidation theorists say, and they're a pretty powerful force right now. It's controversial, but pretty legitimate. And they say all effective therapies have to initiate memory reconsolidation. Tapping does it accidentally. You don't have to know the term, you don't have to know the concept, but what happens is that for memory reconsolidation to happen, the old learning has to be brought into consciousness, and then it has to be contradicted within what's called the reconsolidation window, a period of time. And the way it gets contradicted with tapping is that, so she thinks of her fear of elevators. She thinks of an elevator and feels the fear. So that she's activated the old learning. Then, while she's holding that, you tap it down so that now she's thinking of an elevator and she's not in this moment feeling any fear. That's different from what the old learning predicts. It contradicts what the old learning predicts. And when those two happen at the same time, this one becomes the new normal. This one just breaks up.
This is so exciting. Thank you. Yes, people. This is what happens. Dr. Feinstein explains it so eloquently. Oh. I'm just thinking, this information and your teaching is pure platinum. I'm not even going gold here. It's platinum. Thank you for explaining this, because people will say, well, what's going on here? And I go, I'm not sure, but I know it works. So let's just go with it and see what happens. This is the reason it works. Yes. Okay. What I sometimes ask people, I'm not sure you want to be asked this question, but I know that your website is innersource.net. Is that correct?
There's a energy medicine part of the website, okay, and an energy psychology part of the website. Within Inner Source is the organization. So innersource.net will get you there, but also learnenergymedicine.com.
Learnenergymedicine.com, yes, sir. Okay.
That'll get you to basically Donna's side of it. Mm-hmm. And energypsyched.com will get you the energy psychology side of it. Energy psych ed, like it spells, I meant energy psychology education, but it spells out to energy psyched. So psyched.com, energy, P-S-Y-C-H-E-D.
ED. Okay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to have this all listed in the iTunes description for everyone. Because, ladies and gentlemen, don't think that you're going to get a private session with Dr. David Feinstein. It's not going to happen. So, me? Yes. Maybe I shouldn't say that. May I say that? Okay.
Yes, with you, yes. And you know, it's incredible that whatever city you live in, there's probably a tapping practitioner in that city. Yeah. Did you do it remotely?
Oh, yeah, I do. Just as we're doing right now, I use Zoom, which is HIPAA compliant. I consult all over the world.
That's great.
I love to teach. That's a great resource. Because what I found out, David, I don't know if I'll get to this with Donna or not, but energy goes through the computer. So I can teach tapping, I can balance chakras, I can clear the auric field, I can do all that through the computer, which is really cool. So whether it's in my brick and mortar office, in Pittsburgh or whether, I always say whether you're across the street or around the world, we can still meet to figure out what's going on thanks to your teaching and your research and Donna's teaching, the Association for Comprehensive Energy Psychology. I have been able to learn, integrate, bring out whatever gifts God made me. So I can't see it. Oh, I wish I could. But I'm kinesthetic. I can feel it. I can feel it wherever. And I love the distance part of it too. I love to do distance healing. If I know that someone, wherever someone is, once they're my client or a dear friend, I can say, okay, I'm going to balance your chakras right now because I'm keying in and they're a mess. So let me go ahead and clear the congestion in there so you can feel better. This is part of the reason that I love energy medicine and energy psychology so much. It's the most thorough, comprehensive healing tool that I've been introduced to. So we'll just see what happens from here. But combining energy psychology with cognitive behavior therapy, really, to me, it's the wedding of two fantastic systems that really help people move, that get them unstuck. That's why I love it so much. David, it's been such an honor and a privilege. The words for once in my life escape me, but thank you so much for teaching everyone and sharing your experience, sharing your life with us. Thank you for sharing your life and your journey in energy psychology with us. It's been beyond amazing. So, everyone, I'm telling you right now, share this podcast. Seriously, because you won't get information like this anywhere else, except from Don and David on their website. Okay, so I'm going to stop our recording. Thank you all for listening. Thank you all for watching. And remember, there are no limits to what you can achieve. I'm stuck.